Good day, everyone. I think we can start. I see it's just past the hour of 3 o'clock in South Africa. A warm welcome. I think a warm welcome is quite appropriate if you're in South Africa. It's quite a cold day today, especially in Gauteng. It's great to see so many of you. I do expect quite a number of people to still join within the next few minutes, and people that have definitely confirmed. Welcome to this webinar. Today's webinar is all about optimal placement. And the webinar will have two parts. The first part will be a bit more about the theory behind placing people optimally in the workplace. And then the second part of the webinar will specifically focus on Shadowmatch practically. In other words, how do you use Shadowmatch as a system to successfully place people in the workplace? Ladies and gentlemen, just a few admin arrangements. Most of you know by now, but you are currently on forced mute. And that's just to ensure that the presenters present uninterruptedly. You will have the opportunity towards the end of the webinar to unmute yourself and ask a question. If in the meantime, during the duration of the webinar, you do have a question, you're welcome to just post your question in the chat, and then one of the Shadowmatch team members will answer your question. My name is Lizette de Villiers. I will be doing the first bit of the presentation, and then I'm going to hand over to Suzanne Conradi, our General Manager at Shadowmatch, and she will do the practical part. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, because we've only scheduled an hour, let's start. Let me just share my screen and make sure that everybody can see. Great, I see some thumbs up. And let me just move. Great, ladies and gentlemen, so this afternoon's webinar is all about optimal placement. I would like to just show you what we're going to do and what we're going to cover. So let me just move some of my tabs out of the way. There you are. So if we talk about placing people in the business, the first thing we would like to focus on is, why is this important to focus on who do we place in the business? The second thing is, what makes it difficult to place people successfully? Now, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk placing, it's important to know that we're not just talking recruitment. Placing refers to recruiting people, whether it's from external or from within the business. Placing also refers to if we redeploy people within the business. Placing is also if we look at succession planning. And placing would also come into play if we have a merger or two businesses merging or acquiring another business. How do we place people optimally in this new formed business? So when I talk placing, please keep in mind it's not just recruitment. Yes, definitely it is recruitment, but we also look at all the other things in the business. Even promoting people is placing somebody in a new role in the organization. And we would like to see, why is this important? What makes it difficult? Then why is it a business risk placing people in the business, and specifically placing the wrong person in this specific job? What is the relationship between recruitment, succession planning, training and development on the one end, and then on the other side, business success and sustainability? And then lastly, I will focus on optimal placement before I then hand to Suzanne, who will practically show how we use the system, specifically Shadowmatch today, to optimally place people in the workplace. Why is optimal placement important? Ladies and gentlemen, I think we all know this, but people are the single most expensive cost in a business. If you ask any person, specifically in finance, they will tell you that that is the biggest expense. Look at the salary bill. That is the most expensive part of running any operation, whether it's a small business, a medium business, or a large corporation. But on the other hand, people are also your most critical asset. So although it's your biggest expense, it's also your largest asset. And that's why it's so important, ladies and gentlemen, that we look at optimally placing people in the workplace, because it's a high cost, but it's also an asset that you actually acquire into your business. A weak workforce enables a weak business. Ladies and gentlemen, no matter what the size of your business, if your workforce is weak, your business is weak. That happens in a small business where it's a one-man band, 5 employees, 10 employees, medium-sized enterprises, as well as a large corporate. If your workforce is not strong, you cannot build a sustainable, successful, and profitable business. And then lastly, why is looking at placement important? Because a wrong placement, whether it's recruiting somebody, whether it's redeploying somebody, whether it's promoting somebody, a wrong placement can destroy a business. Ladies and gentlemen, and even so more if it's a critical placement. Let me give you an example, or let me use an analogy. If I'm a sailor and I'm all by myself on a sailboat at sea, and I'm not very cautious and I'm not very aware of what's the weather conditions, what are the sea currents, what's the wind doing, and I'm not steering the ship properly, and I'm not balancing myself on the boat, I, single individual, can cause that boat to sink. Yes, small business, only me. But ladies and gentlemen, think about the Titanic. One critical person making one critical judgment error, and the ship sank. Let's say there was a very large business in South Africa. They employed 35,000 people. They were listed on the stock exchange, and one wrong appointment caused that business to close their doors. So that's why it's so important to look at who do we place in what role in our business. Now, what makes optimal placement difficult? Ladies and gentlemen, fairy tale recruitment and the human factor is the first reason that makes it so difficult. Now, those of you that attended the webinar that Peter de Villiers hosted on fairy tale recruitment versus facts will remember that he elaborated a lot on this, and I would really urge you, those of you that didn't attend that webinar, please go to our YouTube channel. There's a video recording, and the entire hour looks at fairy tale recruitment versus factual recruitment. I'm really just going to touch on it. What do we mean with fairy tale recruitment and the human factor? Ladies and gentlemen, that's all fuzzy, airy, fairy stuff. That's when I make a placement decision. And listen carefully, not just a recruitment decision, a placement decision. I'm promoting somebody or I'm redeploying somebody, but my decision is not based on facts. My decision is based on feeling, likes, dislikes. That's fairy tale recruitment, and that's the human factor. Just for a moment, think for yourself, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've all been in this situation. If somebody walks into an interview and the person is well-dressed, well-groomed, they speak well, they are verbally competent, they build rapport, they're good at managing people and the relationships in the interview, versus the person entering the interview, maybe also properly groomed, but not verbally that strong, not flamboyant, not that natural building relationship, not a people's person, more reserved, more quiet. Which one will I be more likely to appoint? Probably the bubbly person, the one that builds relationship, builds rapport. Yes, because that's the human factor. But is that what my business needs? Maybe not. That's the fairy tale recruitment, and it's very dangerous, ladies and gentlemen, because we base our decision on what do I like, what don't I like, and that's completely subjective. Another point that makes placing people optimally in the workplace difficult is we're not working with facts. Again, it links to the previous point. We do fairy tale recruitment. We don't work with facts. Very important when we do recruitment, when we place people, when we promote people, we have to base our decision on facts. And then lastly, what makes optimal placement difficult? Many of us, maybe all of us, follow a linear approach instead of a holistic one. What is a linear approach? We do an interview and maybe in some cases an assessment, maybe a role play, maybe an in-basket exercise. But in most cases and in most companies where I've worked, ladies and gentlemen, the placement decision is based purely on an interview and very often on that fairy tale experience of that person in the interview. I will expand and elaborate a little bit more on the holistic approach towards the end of my discussion today. Why is placing people in a business risk? Our workforce is our biggest asset. Why? Because our people come with experience, they come with qualifications, they come with knowledge, they come with expertise, so they become an asset in our business. But that same asset, or let's say that same workforce, can also become a business risk. Why a business risk? Because, ladies and gentlemen, if it's the wrong person in the wrong job, then they can destroy our business. Research indicated that if you continuously employ the wrong person in the job, or you place the wrong person in a specific role, if you do that continuously, the critical break point to put the business at risk is 47%. What do I mean with 47%? If 47% of your workforce is not performing optimally, you run the risk of closing your business, of having a business failure, and ladies and gentlemen, sadly, even closing your doors. So that's very important that every placement you make is considered very carefully. Let's look at business success and sustainability in the light of optimal placements. Ladies and gentlemen, a business cannot grow without critical people. Now, I chose this picture specifically because I would like to use an analogy. If we look at farming, let's use cut flower farmers. If a cut flower farmer decides, I want to farm flowers, what does he need to consider? Firstly, where am I going to farm these flowers? Is it in a tropical area or in a very dry area? In South Africa, in the Karoo, or maybe in a tropical area in the KwaZulu-Natal area. Secondly, what are my conditions? What's the climate like? What's the availability of water? What's the condition of the soil? Will the plants that I plant need lots of fertilizer? What are the risks in terms of insect and disease management? Only once the farmer has made all that assumptions and done all that research can he decide on which flowers must I plant to ensure a successful, profitable farm with flowers of export quality that I can deliver to the market. The same in the business environment, ladies and gentlemen. Before we decide who are the critical people that we place in our business, we need to consider our landscape. What's my climate, my culture? What's the working environment? What's the leadership structure like? What's the business structure like? Where's the business located? Once we've got all of that, we can then decide, but who are the critical people that will succeed in this working environment? Now, if on the one side, let's look at the farm again. If the farmer continuously sows the wrong seeds of flowers that are not suitable for that specific climate, with that specific availability of water, with that type of soil, yes, the flowers might come up and bloom. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, they're probably going to be much smaller than the farmer who has actually planted the right flowers in the right climate. And yes, he might be able to deliver some flowers to the marketplace, but he cannot compete with the competition because his flowers are small and not as colorful. They're not export quality. The same in the business. If we continuously place poor people, or we make poor placements, let me rephrase, not poor people, and I'll make a comment about that now. But if we continuously do poor placements, we are eroding the functional capabilities of the workforce because we are making our business poor in terms of skills, capabilities, and obviously competent people. That leads to a business that's at a risk of being a failure. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to make a comment about wrong person and poor placements. It's quite important at this point for me to just mention that when I talk wrong placement or poor performer, it's got nothing to do with the individual. Poor performance in the workplace is in 99% of cases not because of a bad person. It's not because of an individual not doing the job properly. 99% of cases, a poor placement is because of a bad recruitment decision. People do not perform, not because they are lazy, not because they are bad. And maybe there is a 0.0001% chance that might be the case. But in 99.999% of cases, ladies and gentlemen, a poor performer is not because the person decided to be a poor performer. A poor performer is because of a bad recruitment and bad placement decision. And we've put a person in a job or in a role where they cannot succeed because the role doesn't suit their natural behavior patterns. And that's what Suzanne will show us on the system a little bit later. And then lastly, business success and sustainability. If we continuously make poor placement decisions, ladies and gentlemen, we will reach a critical point of collapse, and the results are almost impossible to recover. Think about the cut flower farmer, continuously sowing the wrong seeds, planting the wrong flowers in that specific climate will lead to substandard flowers. He cannot export, he doesn't get his money at the market, and he cannot compete with other cut flower farmers. leading to a business or a farm that's a failure. The same happens in the business environment. We reach a critical point of collapse. It's sometimes very difficult to recover and to then build a sustainable, successful, and profitable business. The last point in terms of optimal placement is specifically looking at now, considering all these things, we should recruit on facts. We shouldn't do fairy tale, fluffy, the human factor recruitment. We need to look at the business risk. We need to look at a workforce as an asset. How do we then place optimally? Firstly, ladies and gentlemen, we take a holistic approach, and that I'm going to explain in a few more sentences as soon as I've showed you a video. And then secondly, once we've taken the holistic approach, we base our decision on facts. What's the holistic approach? I need to base my placement decision on knowledge. In other words, does the individual have the knowledge to do the job? The individual can say, I know how to do this. I need to base my decision on the skills and on the fit. Knowledge, does the individual have the knowledge? Skills, can the individual actually successfully execute the tasks that they need to execute? And does the person fit into the environment, the culture, the climate, the leadership style, the team dynamics? Those are the three things that we need to consider if we look at the holistic approach. Now, I would like to show a short video. It's really only a little bit more than 2 minutes, and then I'll conclude before I hand to Suzanne. Let me just get the video and show you the video.
In this video, I want to explain the 3 critical components for success in the workplace. The Shadowmatch team refers to these components as I know, I can, I fit. The first component, I know, is all about the knowledge necessary to do the job. Knowledge refers to theoretical knowledge, information, and the understanding of how things work and how it is done. This will include product knowledge, process knowledge, technical know-how, general business knowledge, and so forth. The second component, I can, is about the physical skills necessary to successfully do the job on an execution or practical level. A skill is the term used to refer to the physical execution of the task in a smooth and successful manner. It is in relation to this aspect that Skillsgrid is used. The third component is the I fit part of a job. This is about employee workplace compatibility. This is probably the most challenging aspect of the 3. The question is, does the behavioral patterns of the employee meet the behavioral expectation of the working environment? It is in this area where Shadowmatch is used with great success. I will now explain the above by means of a few examples. A medical doctor has the knowledge to do the job because he completed his qualification to practice as a doctor. Through his years of study, he acquired the physical skills to work as an emergency medical practitioner. Will he be able to practice his profession as a doctor on an oil rig in a very remote area? This will all depend on whether his behavioral patterns function positively in the environment. Shadowmatch is used extensively to answer this question. Let me give you a second example. A musician has the knowledge to read and understand sheet music and the skill to play the piano. Does this mean that all pianists will be equally good at teaching music to kids at a nursery school? No. For this job, a specific and unique combination of habits are necessary. Remember, people are successful and become confident in what they do when they have the knowledge, the skill to execute the task, and the behavioral patterns that fit the environment where the job needs to be done. Shadowmatch and Skillsgrid can assist in ensuring success for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, just a few comments about the video. Now that's the holistic approach. Does the person have the knowledge to do the job? Does the person have the knowledge, excuse me, does the person have the knowledge to do the job? Now, how do we measure knowledge? Not with the system, ladies and gentlemen. Knowledge is purely, does the person have the qualification to the job, to do the job if a qualification is needed? In other words, I need an engineer, do you have an engineering degree? I need a physiotherapist, are you a qualified physiotherapist? In some jobs, a qualification is not necessary, but we need specific knowledge. We get that on the CV. Has the person done certain short courses? And in some jobs, no knowledge is necessary. Can I then, once I've placed the person, teach the person what he or she needs to know in the job, business processes, product knowledge, and. Secondly, in terms of our holistic approach is skills. That's the physical execution of the job. Now, you saw in the video SkillsGrid. We are not going to cover SkillsGrid this afternoon. There's a separate webinar for this. I'm sure Suzanne will give you a glimpse of SkillsGrid, but we're going to have an entire webinar just based on and focused on skills and mapping skills in your working environment. And then lastly, fit. Fit is all about, does the individual, with who they are naturally and how they naturally do things, their habits, does that person fit my mold, my working environment? Now, ladies and gentlemen, people fail, and research has indicated that people fail in the workplace. Only 10% of the failure is due to the fact that they didn't have the knowledge. 20% reason for failure because they didn't have the skills. 70% of reasons is because the person didn't fit the working environment. And that's shocking statistics. But 70% of people fail because they were not a fit to the working environment. Now, taking all of this into consideration, and now that we have a holistic picture, the knowledge, the skills, and the fit, all based on facts, how do we know whether the individual that we've now looked at in terms of knowledge, skills, and fit will actually succeed in the job? How do I know that this puzzle piece will actually fit into this gap? Ladies and gentlemen, we match and compare against a benchmark of successful people already doing the job. So I take people in my environment, in my culture, in my team dynamics, in my division that already performs that job successfully. And I use them as my recruitment and my development and my succession planning benchmark. Now, on that note, I would now like to hand over to Suzanne. Suzanne is going to take you through the Shadowmatch system and show you how do we use the system to take all of this in terms of making the right placement decision. How do we use the system to enable that? Thank you very much, Suzanne.
Thank you so much, Lizette. Thank you for the very insightful introduction. I'm so excited to start presenting the system part after that very insightful introduction. Just from my side, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's lovely to see all the faces and names again today. So I think let's jump right in. So as you know, Shadowmatch holistically is a workforce optimization system. So it supports you in all of the engagement with your employees and the workforce you engage with. Today, we're going to be focusing on one piece of that, the optimal placement part. Now, good news, there's a bunch of great practical system functionalities that enable all of these processes seamlessly and effortlessly. Let's start at the first step. So we're going to focus on the I fit component. Lizette has given us that introduction. I know, I can, I fit. So let's focus on that I fit part. How do we put those pieces of the puzzle together? Now, step one is we need to create benchmarks. Now, benchmarks actually allow you to map your unique context. So just as Lizette said, we need to understand the climate, the weather structures, everything that makes us our unique organization. We need to understand that. And the benchmark is that very insightful insight into that context. Now let's see, how do we practically do this? Once again, today I'm going to log into a fictitious company using fictitious data. I'm logged in as a system administrator for that company. So everything I'm going to do today, you as a client will be able to do live and interactively on your side with your own employees' data. Let me just start sharing my screen. There we go. Okay, so on the screen, you can see my company, Company Z. And if I log in, you can see the various business areas or business role within the company. Now, for each role, we specifically then create a benchmark. So I'm going to log into my first department. What do we have here? Customer support. The process to identify my benchmark individual, that process happens outside of the system. So I evaluate to see who are the guys currently performing in this role in the current context, amidst everything that's happening. So currently we know COVID happened and all of the drama in the world. So currently who is performing? Meaning they're meeting or exceeding my performance targets. And then there's a few extra criteria we put in place just to make certain you're creating an accurate benchmark. The second one is they need to be in that role for longer than 8 months. This is purely for the reason that new brooms sweep clean. You know how excited everybody is when they start off in a position, but if we let that dust settle to say these guys are still performing, fantastic, we can identify them. Now in the system, it's very easy. We tell the system, these guys, they're my benchmark individuals, please include them in my benchmark. Now I'm going to click here on my Shadowmatch benchmark in my left main menu. And now I'm viewing the benchmark or the map of this specific role. So this map will look completely different for each individual role and in each individual environment. That's the whole purpose of Shadowmatch, to say, understand your unique context. It's not a mold where we say, all managers look like this, all engineers look like that. Luckily, the world is way more interesting and people are way more unique than that. So the system allows you to understand your unique context. Now, practically, if we scroll down, I've now told the system, these guys, they are currently performing in this position. They've each completed the Shadowmatch worksheet individually. And now I have the results on the system and I've marked them as benchmark individuals. Now look carefully what the system does. Now the system starts the stats check. So it's looking for the congruent patterns of behaviors that it can say with certainty is definitely functional towards success. So do you see my benchmark strength indicator currently is red? So it's warning me to say, whoa, take a look here. All of these individuals on my list has externally met the criteria. They're currently performing in this position. But now the system says, I'm not finding the congruency between these behaviors. I want to make it more statistically valid. And all I need to do is follow that instruction. So it's telling me this individual, let's just see what happens. So I mark that individual. Next to the name, there's the actions button. And I now choose the option to say, I do not want this result to contribute to the benchmark calculation. The button says I disable in Shadowmatch benchmark. Click that button. And now that individual no longer contributes to my benchmark. If we scroll down to the bottom, look what happened at the top. Our benchmark strength is now green. So now the system says, fantastic, I found those statistically valid results. You can now start looking at your map and you can use your benchmark. That indicator can either be red, orange, or green. The moment it is orange or green, A for away, you can start using the benchmark. The system is happy that it's an accurate reflection of the behaviors that are functional towards success, and it shows you the unique intensities. Okay. Once we have our benchmark, what's step 2? We now want to start comparing individuals to this. I'll now show you the detail of the match, but I just want to show you how the system now automatically categorizes your data for you in an easy way. On the left, I now see all of the individuals in customer support. So we've just been working with our benchmark individuals. I now go to my applicants list. Now these are all of the individuals that are applying for this position. Now think about the time and energy going into the interview process, the placement process. If we can optimize that with a system like this, how much time and energy do we save? And now we're starting to go towards what Lizette recommended, is it's not fairy tale recruitment, but factual recruitment. Look how easy the system makes it for me. I have all of my applicants. They all completed the worksheet individually. I click this one button and there we go. Now they ranked from the best alignment to my benchmark to the ones that are not aligning as well to this specific map or specific benchmark. Let's open up this first result. We see it's a very, very good match. Green robots there, 10 out of 10. Let's go and look at the detail. On my benchmark and now on my matching result here, I have specific areas that carry equal weight. The first one is my overall match, which indicates the entire picture. So all 19 of the habits or the 19 constructs measured by the Shadowmatch worksheet is represented in this view. So it's basically the culture of that entire role. Now look at what we see here. We see a gray graph, and then we see next to it the graph of the individual's results. On the system, I can easily switch this view if I don't want to see them according to the habit categories. What do I mean by this? My legend informs me that my habits are now grouped according to planned behaviors all the way to radical habits, meaning the intensity of that habit. How strongly is it embedded within that behavioral benchmark? If I don't prefer this view, simply click there, and now it will show my individual in one color and then the graph of the benchmark in the gray. Just going to quickly switch it back. Okay, we've addressed overall match. The next aspect is the critical match. Now, none of this carries more weight, and you'll see now in the matching. What the critical match, however, tells me is, out of all of these behaviors, what are the 5 strongest habits or the habits that are embedded the most? You'll see discipline is here, for instance. There we go. You see discipline again, and the 4 other highest habits. So it gives me a different piece of information into the insight of this specific role. When we scroll down, we then see the conceptual fitness. So how fit should we be to work with problems for this specific role? Now, once again, ladies and gentlemen, in Shadowmatch, there's nothing like good or bad or right or wrong. This is the fitness for this role. This is the context. This is the soil we're working with to cultivate those flowers. And our benchmark tells us we need a 4 out of 10 fitness level. We need to run around the building 4 times a day. Do you see now why this individual, we see it's a green robot here? Because it's a match. She also is fit enough to run around the building 4 times a day. So she'll be able to perform successfully in this specific role. The last few things, our task efficiency. This is then a measurement of the overall time taken to complete the worksheet, the conceptual time, together with my conceptual accuracy score, and it communicated in this calculator to say how efficient were we with completing the Shadowmatch worksheet. Not how efficient are we as customer support individuals, how efficient were we with the specific worksheet, comparing apples to apples. Once again, our benchmark indicates what is needed for success in this specific role. Our attitude, the last measurement here, is our approach into the environment to say, are we involved, uninvolved, in an unaggressive or in an assertive or aggressive manner. Now we see the benchmark is the gray and the individual is then the maroon part. And now we see once again the alignment. Now the current view is the bottom line to say visually we have a complete summary of the entire picture. If you prefer a detailed, more informed view of this, you simply click on matching report. And now, I just quickly need to lock my benchmark. See how the system informs me what I need to do. If I click there, I'm locking my benchmark to say, I'm happy. This benchmark is sorted. I can start generating reports from it. Let me just click back. We can someone click there to Tanya. And let's click on matching report again. The moment my benchmark is locked, the system allows me to create this, that I did not lock my benchmark. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I just clicked, but I never clicked lock. There we go, benchmark locked, back to Tanya. And then back to my matching report. There we go. So now we have the detail about all of these aspects. So everything from the overall match all the way through to tell me what do I see here. If I want the detail, I'll read the entire report, and it gives me the conclusion to say the habits of Tanya are extremely congruent to that of the benchmark group. If Tanya has the skills to do the job, we'll address that now, and she does the job under the same conditions as the benchmark group, her probability to succeed is very high. And now this was nice. We looked at Tanya and it was an easy match. If we now said, listen, fantastic, we like what we're seeing in the match, maybe we should invite her to an interview. And remember how we optimize this process By clicking there, we can see, okay, these are the guys that already fit our unique context. So we've addressed that aspect, we've addressed the I fit part. Let's do step 2 to invite them to an interview. Now the system once again supports me in this to say, well, great, you want to invite Tanya? Let's generate an interview pack for her. So I'm going back to her results, scrolling back to the bottom, and now I see a button here called interview. The moment I press on it, I now can create an interview pack. Now what the interview pack consists of is 10 questions based on the critical or the specific behavioral context of that role. So it's targeted. Instead of me asking the individual, tell me about your strengths and weaknesses, and they take out that prepared answer to say, I'm ready for this question, let me tell you what you want to hear, I get actual insight into, listen, what do we need in this environment? It's based on the benchmark's result, not on the individual's result. Why? Because if anybody applies for this position, they need to go through that same process. And we want to understand the context of this role. Now look how easy it is on the system. I click on create interview pack. I put in the details. Let's say the interview is on Friday. Obviously I choose the time and I say it is at our head office. So we say company Z, head office, fantastic. Now the system is asking me, okay, who is going to facilitate this interview? Because I want to send them the questions they need. I already have one facilitator. If I want to add someone else, let's quickly put in my details. There we go. Fantastic. And let's say I am the human resource representative. I add me as an interviewer. And now I can say, listen, these are the guys that are going to physically perform the interview. The next step, the system asks me, select the members of my interview panel who will be interviewing Tanya for this specific position. I'm going to select both of them, and I'm going to go include to my next step. And now it's asking me, okay, who of these guys are physically going to facilitate that interview? Let me say it's going to be me. And now it's giving me all of the details. And now I can say create and send that interview pack with one click of a button. I click and send, and on the other side, the individual receives that interview. On the system, it gives me my summary. I can at any time also download it here and print it out and take it to the interview. Just quickly want to show you that example. This is what the individual receives on the other side in an email, all of the details guiding them with their specific interview pack for that specific candidate. If we want to quickly look at one of the questions, let me just open up an example here. The whole pack has the scoring, everything you need for that interview. Here's a question focusing specifically on the individual inclination of that individual. Each of the facilitators can score and completely do the entire interview process. Now with the interview pack, you can see it can help you to facilitate the whole process. If you already have an interview process in place, request that interview pack and choose 3 of those questions to inform the behavioral aspect. So I'm asking targeted questions, not just questions up in the air. Okay, now we have our interview pack. Let's just quickly go back to our applicants. And it was nice to look at Tanya because it was an easy match to that benchmark. But see how the system is valuing the individual just as much as the business. So I'm going back to my applicants list. And let's look at another result. Let's say Dornia at the bottom of our list. Now look how the system is informing me to say, are you sure this is fair towards the individual? Are you enabling her or him to be successful? The gray is still the benchmark, so our environment and the representation of the functional towards success behaviors that work in our unique context. The colored individual graphs here is the individual's habits. Now, very important, there's nothing wrong with Dawn, there's nothing wrong with the context. It's just not aligned. And if we now are going to force Dawn into this environment to say, we're asking you to perform in customer support, but every day is going to be completely different than to what you want to naturally do. Let's look at this for instance, propensity to take ownership, propensity to hand off. For the benchmark, it's a higher intensity to take ownership of that situation. And she said, you know what, I have a stronger preference to rather hand off. If we look at the team and the individual inclination, here we see there's a very high intensity for a team inclination. And for her, the opposite is true. She says, I'd rather want to individually perform. If we look at the people habits here, people positive, conflict handling, altruism, leadership. For the benchmark and our context, it's a natural behavior. It's quite strongly embedded. For her, it's something that's necessary where she needs to plan or put in that energy to show that behavior. Last thing, if we look at our attitude, our benchmark or the context is dominantly involved in an unaggressive way. Her dominant approach is uninvolved. So now do you see how we're understanding what the mismatch is going to be? So is it fair to say, Dawn, we're in any way gonna put you in this role? Sorry if it's going to fatigue you and frustrate you, and sorry if we're going to start performance managing you after a week because you're not handling the customers friendly enough according to our needs. That's not a responsible placement, and that's not an optimal way to use placement. Now let's think about this. What if our candidate is now not suitable for that position? We see it's not an alignment. How can the system support us if we don't want to lose that candidate? Let's look at someone else. Let's say Gillian. So Gillian, we see the same here. In the role she is applying for in customer support, it's not a good alignment. We're not seeing the context, what is required by our specific role and her unique preferences. We're not seeing that close alignment. But we don't want to lose Gillian. We see there's a lot of potential. Can't we find another position within our business to support Gillian optimally? What do? We scroll down. And now we click on this button. So I'm viewing this individual's result compared to the role she applied for. But if I scroll down and click on multi-match, now the system allows me to say, let's understand the entire context. All of the roles you have created in your business, all of the benchmarks. Please compare this one individual against them and show me where that best fit is. We first looked at her in customer support, but look at her in sales. Same individual, exactly the same behavioral preferences, and suddenly there's that perfect alignment. So what the system in fact allows me to do is to then optimally place these individuals in the specific context that has that natural alignment for them. So everything goes smoother from there, the training goes quicker, and it's a sustainable fit for the individual to find a position where they feel comfortable and it's a successful environment for them. Now, what if I need the opposite of that? I now ask the system, I have a specific individual. Please show me where the strongest alignment is according to the positions. If I want the opposite to say, I have a specific position, please show me which of the individuals align with this. Then I use the multi-match in the reverse. How do I do this? I'm going to go into one of my other departments on the system. I am now going to go into customer support supervisors. For this step, I first go to my benchmark. Why am I going to my benchmark? To say, show me that context, and from this context, find the individuals for me. So I click on my Shadowmatch benchmark. And now if you quickly look, you'll see it looks completely different to the other one. That's the whole point. It's a different position, a different context for that specific role. What do I see here at the top to the right? A multi-match button. If I click, now the system searches my database to say, please find me the strongest alignment of individual preferences towards this role. Now look how the system makes it easier for you even more. At this stage, it's asking me, or it's giving me the result of all of my individuals in my entity. Let's say I want to make this a bit more specific. I click here and I say, no, not the entire company Z. My process requires me to source from a specific department. I just want to see in customer support. I choose customer support. I generate my multi-match. And you see now what happened at the bottom here. Now my individuals are all currently placed in my customer support environment. So let's just take a step back. What are we actually enabling here? Succession planning, leadership identification, the promotion of individuals into different roles, to say, now I'm sourcing internally from everybody currently employed in my business who already has a natural fit into this position. Now remember, this is the standard usage. If you tailor this according to your organization's need, you can filter this in any way to say the individuals I'm grouping together. If we identifying individuals that have very specific demographics, very specific criteria to fulfill, then we put them all in a file, we click this button, and there we go. With one rank, we have the complete list to optimize that process easier. Okay, so let's see. We did our multi-match, we did our reverse multi-match. This is for succession planning, leadership identification, anything we want to internally find an individual to fit that position. As we said at the start, we're going to quickly watch our I can part as well, because this is now all focusing on the I fit component to say, compare the behavioral context and the behavioral profile of the individual. Now, just as all of these functions work in Shadowmatch, they also work in Skillsgrid. What do I mean by that? I can create my behavioral context, but I can also map my skills context. Now, if I'm going to go back to my home screen and then say, okay, take me to Skillsgrid, show me the Skillsgrid results of my individuals, and show me the benchmark for each role. So let's say we go into sales this time. And now we don't click on Shadowmatch benchmark. We want to see the Skillsgrid benchmark. So in my left menu, I click on Skillsgrid. And now do you see the screen looks completely different? We'll talk about Skillsgrid in that Skillsgrid demonstration, but in a quick nutshell, what am I seeing here? The skills map for the specific role. It's also consisting of the individuals that are performing in this specific area. They individually completed the Skillsgrid assessment, and now I can see this map to say, okay, to what level do we need the specific skills, and what is the priority of each of these skills? So let's just take one example. The skill of selling is a critical skill for the sales position, and how skilled should I be? Expert, all the way. It's colored in all the way to the top. Now I have my benchmark. How do I compare? I do the same thing. I go to my left menu here. I click on my applicants. And once again, I have my list. And now we say, give me that comprehensive match for the skills grid. I see these are the guys according to skills that fit this skills benchmark the best. Let's see what the results look like. There we go. Now what you see here is the individual's result laid over the benchmark. If I quickly hide that benchmark, we see what the individual's skill profile looks like. The top, we have the visual view. To the bottom, we have the detail on the specific sub-skills. More on that later. Today, we just quickly look at the optimal placement. So now it highlights the specific areas to say, okay, we see an alignment here, but in some areas, there's a difference between the skills level of the individual and the benchmark requirements. We can do the same if we say we have that specific role. Don't we have another position within the business that has this perfect fit for the specific skill set? If I go to my applicants again, we looked at that top one. Let's look at someone that's not such a close alignment to this. Let's say Joel. If we look at his results, now we see, okay, there is a skills alignment, but isn't there an area within our business where there's a closer fit? Now I'm going to say, this individual, please give me your skills grid multi-match. I click on my left side menu. Here it is, add his actions. Click on the multi-match. And now it shows me that individual, his skill set is actually perfectly aligned with this specific role. His natural skill set and what the role is going to require is already aligned. Okay. The same I can do on the system if I say, show me a specific skill set and show me the individuals whose skills are the closest to that specific benchmark. So the multi-match as well as the reverse multi-match available in Skillsgrid as well as in Shadowmatch. Okay, let me just see if that was all. Yes, so just to sum up, ladies and gentlemen, I know this was a lot of functionalities in a short time, but if you start playing with these results to say, okay, but I understand the functionality of multi-matching. I understand the functionality of reverse multi-matching. I know I can, with one click of a button, rank the individuals in the alignment. I know I can easily create that benchmark by just adding someone to the benchmark. You can then start aligning it to your unique needs to say, what are we capturing? What is the specific role this benchmark represents? What is the specific individuals we want to compare to that benchmark? We put them in that file, we click on that functionality, and our whole optimal placement process is so much easier and facilitated with each step. Okay, I think at that point, Lizette, I'm going to hand over to you and hear if there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Thank you very much for a very, very successful walk through the system and tying the theory and the practical together. Ladies and gentlemen, just in conclusion from my side, so if you optimally place people in a holistic manner, this is exactly what it is. And it's important, and I hope you could gauge through Suzanne's demonstration that when you have the facts, I have a skills profile of the person, I have a behavioral profile, in other words, a shadow match result of the individual. Can you see how informed you actually then go into the interview with that individual? Now it's not a fairy tale recruitment anymore. Now it's factual recruitment, because now I know I have the information about the person's knowledge. I've looked at the CV or the resume, so I know what are their qualifications, what experience do they have, what short courses have they done, and I've got the skills profile, I've got the shadow match result, and I've got the interview pack that the system generated, giving me the correct questions to ask in this interview. Now it's factual recruitment, and now I base my decision on facts and not on likes, dislikes, you know, does the person present well, do they speak well? So thank you very much, Suzanne. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go into the questions and before I look at the chat, just a few last comments. So thank you, Suzanne. The SkillsGrid webinar will specifically focus on SkillsGrid, and I know in the SkillsGrid webinar, we're actually going to take you through the SkillsGrid questionnaire or worksheet. It will really just take 10 minutes, but we are actually going to showcase what are the questions that an individual will answer when they complete the SkillsGrid profile. Then, ladies and gentlemen, in September, there's a webinar next week. There are a couple of webinars. Next week, the 9th of September, will be employee support and development. It will follow the same format, a bit of theory, and then the practical application on the system. On the 16th of September, it's team analysis. So you will see it's every time it's a Wednesday. It's the same time, same place. And then on the 30th of September, we are skipping a week because of a public holiday in South Africa. On the 30th of September, we will specifically focus on personal well-being and personal fulfillment. And then in October, we don't have the dates as yet, but in October, we are going to focus on SkillsGrid, career report used for coaching, individual coaching, but also career report in business. And how do you request the career report on the system? And we'll take you through the structure of the career report. We're also going to host a webinar on the study report. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is completely new, so this is going to be a fascinating webinar. And those that attend the webinar will probably be some of the first people to actually see the study report in action. So you can really look forward to that. We haven't yet got the dates for October. With the recording tomorrow, Charmaine will also send you links to the September webinars so that you can book your seat. And then please keep an eye on the shadowmatch.co.za landing page. We've got an events tab, top right corner, and we will soon load the dates and the topics for the October webinars. As I said, we've recorded this. This will be loaded onto YouTube tomorrow, so you're always welcome to go back and to listen to the recording as well. I think that's everything on my side in terms of the administrative, Suzanne. I don't know if there's any questions. Let me quickly there's a question, can we create a benchmark that is more aspirational rather than using specific individuals? In other words, if it's a young company and not enough staff to benchmark, but looking to expand. I can comment, and then if Suzanne wants to add, she's welcome. Yes, Tamlin, you can definitely do that. Obviously, your best and your first prize is always to create a benchmark within your own environment. So if it's a small company and you don't have that specific role, but you have a role that's more or less similar, that's your first prize, is to use people that are already successful, because they've obviously adjusted and are obviously comfortable with your culture, your leadership style, your structure, your look and feel, and whatever, all the nice things that go with it. If that's not possible, then you are welcome to contact your Shadowmatch consultant. We can help with a generic benchmark. Ladies and gentlemen, that's definitely not first prize, but if you do not have the option to create a benchmark, we can help you with a generic benchmark. What do we need? We need to know your industry. We need to have a very clear role description and specification of that role. What we then do is we search our database of 3 to 4 million people that work in similar industries, in a similar role, that are top performers, and we create a benchmark for you. There is a cost involved, and please keep in mind that we cannot divulge any information in terms of who's in the benchmark, what's their age, we can't do that because it's a generic benchmark. But in a very small company, Tamlin, there is a second option that's maybe even better than the generic benchmark. And that is, you can actually create a team of people that will work with that individual that you are employing. And we are going to actually elaborate a bit on that when we do the team webinar, and that's on the 16th of September. I'm going to hand to Suzanne. Suzanne, I don't know if you want to make any comments in this regard. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Lizette. Thank you for the question, Tamlin. I actually have good news for you of a very nice informative resource. I'm just once again going to share my screen. You will find all of these videos on our .com website on the frequently asked questions tab. Now you'll see one of these questions are already, or one of these videos is already open in my, my view here, because I anticipated that might be one of the questions. This specific question or video addresses the question, what if we cannot create a benchmark? Then it takes you through all of the options, everything Lizette just discussed, to say, understand your context, what are the system applications that empower you and that help you with this, and what is the best option for you? Because always, always, always the most value is from your internal context, and something like a generic benchmark is then a very last. If we have nothing else to go on, we can temporarily go on that. But this video will help you on this. So I'm opening it here in YouTube. I just can quickly show you the actual website on shadowmatch.com. In the menu, you'll see these frequently asked questions, and I specifically opened up the question asking the video asking, what if we cannot create a benchmark? There's a bunch of nice videos about benchmarking specifically, benchmarking principles, what if we don't have benchmark employees, and what if we cannot create a benchmark due to the nature of the role? Okay, thanks, Lizette, back to you.
Thank you very much for that, Suzanne. Ladies and gentlemen, a very useful resource. Please go and have a look at those videos. There are two questions, Suzanne. The one I will handle, the other one I'm going to hand to you. The one is, does the candidate view the questions beforehand on the interview pack? No, definitely not. Tembi, thanks for your question. The interview pack is definitely just for your interview panel. So when Suzanne referred to the individual that receives the interview pack, that individual is part of the interview panel. It's not actually the candidate that's going to come for the interview. So the interview pack is not sent to the individual, it's only sent to the panel members that are going to interview that candidate on that specific day or on a date in the future. Suzanne, the question that I'm going to hand to you is, Suzanne, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Please elaborate a little bit more on the consolidated match in the results. In other words, if it shows a 3 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10, what does that mean in terms of my match? Thanks, Suzanne.
Perfect. Let me just unmute myself again, and I'm going to share my screen again that we can all look at that specific score there. I'm back in customer support, back on my applicants list, and let's open up Jillian. You see her there at the top, and let me just click on her results. So the consolidated match is right at the bottom. That's the bottom line of the bottom line view. So in one quick view, I can get the summary to say, what is the propensity towards success for this specific individual to also be successful in this role? Now you can refer this back to a percentage to say, if this is the match for each of the sub areas of my result match against that benchmark, holistically consolidated, it's a 3 out of 10 propensity towards success. So 30% chance of also being successful in that role. That is why we rank it according to that. So if we're back to our applicant list and we click on this comprehensive match, let's just look at Shadowmatch for first. Do you see now, this is the ranking to say, okay, taking all of the sub factors, all of the detail and all of the areas into consideration, give me one view in a glance to say, what is the higher alignment with this specific context for that individual's profile against what the benchmark is expecting of this position. And let's see Tanya just quickly again to see why is hers now a higher consolidated match. Because in each of the sub areas, there was a closer alignment. So overall, the consolidated match is, you know what, there's actually almost 100% chance of her being successful in this role because her natural behavioral preferences align so closely to the benchmark's unique aspects in each of the sub areas. Okay, I hope that answers the question. Please ask if we need to elaborate further.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. There's no other questions. One last comment from my side. I'm just going to go back to Tamlin's question. I know Tamlin asked about a benchmark because if it's a small company and there's not enough individuals to create that benchmark. But I think there was a second part to that question that I might have missed. What if we want to create a more aspirational benchmark? Tamlin, I hope I understand your question correctly, or the second part of your question. That then becomes fairy tale recruitment, because then you say, what do we want? You know, this becomes a pie in the sky. We want to create something that is perfect. And Shadowmatch doesn't allow for that. We say, you know what, use the people in the job that's already rowing your boat from point A to B, that comes to work every day, punctual. They deliver according to expectations. Use those people because they are there. They are performing in that culture, in that environment. What we tend to do as humans is we say, but I know what I want. I want X, Y, and Z. And what our research has indicated is that we don't really know. You know what, Tamlin, in many cases where we've gone into organizations and we've helped them to create a benchmark, some of them were actually surprised to say, I never expected this to be a behavioral pattern necessary for success. And even with the skills, sometimes people think I need good writing skills, good verbal skills. And when they actually take the top performers already performing that role and they create the benchmark, they realize that they sometimes have skills that they didn't even know they need to be successful in that job. So it's quite important. We can help with a generic benchmark, and we can help with a benchmark, or maybe you can use the team application, but to create a benchmark of what you think you need is never clever. Okay, great. Thanks. Tamlin says it wasn't really in that context, but I think it was good information anyway for everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, we are 3 minutes past the hour. I don't want to keep you longer. Thank you very much for joining. We will stay on a bit more for those that have some questions, but just for the purpose of the recording and the session, thank you very much for joining. We trust that you found it insightful, and we hope to see all of you and many more at the webinar next week. Thank you so much, and go well.